Hi, everybody. Welcome to another chair session, chair yoga session. So, we're going to work on self massage today. I think you'll like that. And to begin, we're going to do a little inner process. I don't always call this meditation, but it really is the meditation process that comes from Buddhism. So, we're going to be observing what is in your outer environment. Just noticing the temperature of the air, the touch of the air on your skin. Noticing the sounds coming and going. Most sounds, there's a beginning of the sound, a middle of the sound, an end of the sound. Sometimes you'll hear sounds that seem to be continuous. But if you listen carefully, there might be little variations in the sound, little breaks in the sound, especially if the sound is coming from some kind of motor or like you're heating. And you're looking at that without judgment. Those sounds are not meant to bother you. They're just there and you're observing them. And so it is also with other outer experiences. Noticing the sense of touch, how your position on the chair, you can feel that interaction at where the chair and the buttocks come together. And you might notice a little change in that experience just from breathing or from moving a tiny bit. And as you're breathing, you notice that the breath too is coming and going. You're not making the breath come and go, it just does. And as little as possible, you are, as much as possible, you are not interfering with that process of the breathing. You're not trying to control it, not trying to make a certain pattern, just letting it be the way it is. And you're aware of being in your body, and how you can elongate the body and place the shoulders right over the hips, taking the pubic bone down a little bit so that the front of the body is really open. And you notice that you can rock forward and back just a little bit, and that maybe there's a perfect spot where the shoulders are over the hips where you feel you can relax and be comfortable in this position. And you're noticing that inside, you're aware of the thoughts, the emotions, perhaps that sensation within the body as well. And some of that is flowing with the breath. or maybe affecting the breath or being affected by the breath. Just like the sounds come and go, the thoughts come and go, the emotions come and go. At times they may feel continuous, like there's no break. But in reality, we see there's variation within that experience. And that as we watching the thoughts, watching the emotions, they may tend to hide a little bit or to calm down a little bit just by the watching. And we've talked before that an electron microscope can sense, I think it's protons moving. It's some subatomic or subatomic particle. And the electron microscope can watch a particle. But when a person starts to watch through the electron microscope, that may change the patterns of the particle. Same thing happens with our thoughts, oddly enough. They go on and on whether we're paying attention or not, they're there. We start to pay attention and they get a little quieter. They may rise up again. But the more we can watch without attachment to them being any particular way or not being there entirely, the more we can let go of that attachment, the more we find that they are coming and going, that there's space between them, and maybe they are less there than they were when we first started watching. The Yoga Sutras actually speak to that. And they say that they hide like shadows in the night. So we have to be vigilant and keep watching. I'm noticing a little something funny in the video. We'll get to that in a moment. So the card I picked today says that attachment leads to suffering. So when we want our thoughts to be a certain way, or when we want our life to be a certain way, or not to be a certain way, we want it not to be the way that it is, then we suffer. So this is a good lesson for the day. Attachment leads to suffering. So just for a moment, think about what you're attached to and see if you can watch that attachment, how you cling to it being a certain way or not being a certain way. And just notice, does that actually do you any good to cling to it? Or does it keep bringing you back to things are not the way you want it to be? And you're suffering because of that. All right, so we take a deep breath in. And if you can, you put your hands on your your rib cage. If that doesn't work for your shoulders, you can put your hands on the front of the abdomen, up high near the rib cage, though. And as you breathe, you feel how the breath moves into the rib cage. There may be noise, there may not. Don't force it, just let it be a relaxed breath. You don't have to take a big breath, just breathing in and breathing out. Just like how the microscope allows us to see a particle and to, just by watching it, change how it is. If we watch a certain aspect of the breath, it changes the breath and where we experience the breath. It may be it's always been that way and we're just experiencing it that way. Or it may be that it actually changes a little bit as a result of our paying attention to a certain aspect of the breath. So you're going to notice how, as you breathe, the rib cage opens up on the inhalation. And the rib cage narrows on the exhalation. Look how the torso gets a little longer. We're going to add a little effort in here to make the narrowing of the waist and the lengthening of the torso. And then a breath in again. And as you exhale, the waist narrows, the abdomen draws in, the torso gets taller, you elongate, and you feel the rib cage moving in. If you have your hands on the side ribs and thumbs on the back ribs, you can notice how the breath fills the side ribs. And how, as you exhale, it narrows the side ribs. If you can't put your hands around the outer ribs, maybe you can bring your hands across the arms and put your hands on the side ribs. And we're going to drop the head a little bit. If your hands are on the side ribs with the thumbs back behind, you'll especially maybe feel this. But as you inhale, you're going to notice the breath going into the back body. Limiting just a little bit, the breath expanding out into the front, and instead filling the back body. And as you exhale, the back body moves in, opens the front body. Dropping the head, inhale, fill the back body. Exhale, draw the back body in. And we want to emphasize the breath in the back body because that's where the largest parts of the lungs are. And that's really a big part of staying healthy in this time, is to keep those bottom lungs cleared out. If you have your thumbs behind and your fingers in front, you're de-emphasizing the breath in the front under the fingers and emphasizing the breath in the back where the thumbs are. And there's a little bit of movement of the back body into the front body and the opening of the front body and the head lifting on the exhalation. And on the inhalation, you drop the head and breathe into the back ribs. It's not that the rest of the breath isn't moving at the same time. So you may have movement in the front body, you may have movement in the side body, but the emphasis is on the back body moving, inhaling and filling. And exhaling and emptying the back lungs, emptying the lower lungs. Ha! Inhaling and rounding, moving back a little bit onto the sit bones. Exhaling, ha, moving forward. Ah. Inhale and round. Rock back a little bit. Exhale and move the back body forward and empty the lungs with a ha sound. Inhale and rock back. And exhale and rock forward. Keep the front body open. Fold in the hip joints. Let the back move into the front. 2 more rounds in your own breath rhythm. Not my rhythm, your rhythm. Inhale when you're done the 2 rounds. And come back to center. And breathe. Head is aligned over the spine. Shoulders over the hips. Seated Tadasana. Now we're going to do the lion pose. You can put your claws out on the fronts of your knees. Take a breath into the back body. As you exhale, come forward, stick out the tongue, cross the eyes, and growl. Inhale and round. Exhale, come forward, stick out the tongue, cross the eyes, and growl. Last time. Inhale and round. Exhale. And come back to center. Now just let the breath return to a natural rhythm. And we're going to take your right leg over your left. And we're going to interlace the right fingers in between the left toes. Press down into those spaces. Take the ankle a little off of the thigh and rotate the ankle using the hand. And see how the elbow moves, the shoulder moves, the ankle moves, the ball of the foot moves. Go the other way. Rotating. And then push your fingers way down in those toe spaces and open up the toe spaces. Breath in, draw the toes under. Breath out, push the toes back. Breath in, draw the toes under. Breath out, push the toes out, push away. Open up all the undertoes, breathing naturally. And now take your fingers and thumb around the big toe, rock it back and forth, and pull. Back and forth, next toe, and pull. Do that to each toe. Go underneath the toes and rub. So the fingers are on top of the toes, the thumbs are underneath the toes. You're rubbing the toes and the spaces between the toes. And you're rubbing the ball of the foot. And you're rubbing the arches and the transverse arch on top of the foot. Thumbs rub the arches, inner and outer arches. Fingers rub the transverse arch. And rub the heel and the Achilles tendon. And We're going to do Vitaflex. So it's your left foot on top. You take your right fingers and you come onto the fingertips right along the seam between the bottom foot and the top foot, right along that inner arch. And we're going to keep breathing. And we're going to go from the heel up to the big toe, putting the fingertips just above that line, just above the seam line, and flicking onto the seam line. And we're going to do 3 times at each spot and then move toward the big toe 3 times, move toward the big toe, flick 3 times, move toward the big toe, flick 3 times, all the way up to the big toe. And we're going to do that process 2 more times. Flicking 3 times at each spot where the fingernails flick onto the seam between the upper and the lower foot. And keep breathing. And then release. Taking your other foot across, right leg across the left thigh. Interlace the left fingers and the right toes. You go underneath the toes and put your fingers into the toe spaces. And get the fingers way down in the toe spaces and crank. And feel how that is affecting the wrists, the fingers, the toes, the arches, the heels, the elbow, the shoulder. Go the other way. Breathing. And then push those fingers down into the toe spaces and spread the fingers. Pop the fingers out. Curl the toes under. Breath in. Press the toes away. Stretch the undersides of the toes. And pull the toes under again. Breath in. Exhale. Breath out. Push away. Breath in. Curl the toes under. Exhale. Press away. Now we're going to do the toe turn pull. You're going to take the big toe between the fingers and the thumb and rock the big toe back and forth and pull. Then the next toe and pull, and so on. And then go underneath the toes with your thumbs and between the toes, and your fingers on top of the toes and between the toes, and rub the toes with the thumbs and the fingers. Getting between the toes, on top of the toes, under the toes. And release. Now we're going to do the Vitaflex. So it's your left foot and your right hand. I think. Left hand. Same hand and foot. Let's do that. I'm not sure that's right. I don't remember. Deep breath as you exhale, going along the seam line between the heel and the big toe. Put the fingers at the seam line, just above the seam line, and flick the fingernails onto the seam line. 3 times at each spot as you move along the seam line up toward the top of the foot, the top big toe. And we do it 2 more times. It is same hand and foot. I used to do this a lot in doing essential oils on people's feet. I haven't done that in a long time. All right, last time. So that line along the inner arch all the way up to big toe, it relates to in Vitaflex, in reflexology and in Vitaflex, it relates to the spine. So you're stimulating the spine and bringing health to the spine as you do that. Pull the toes back, press them away, and put the feet on the floor. Take a breath in and align. Put your hands back on the chair, on the back of the chair, or on the seat of the chair. Roll your shoulders up and back. Draw the shoulders back as far as you can from an open position. Don't draw back from the shoulders going forward and then draw them back, but roll them up toward the ears and reach them back behind you. And if you can hold on to the chair at the back, you can lean forward a little bit, opening up those shoulders. Breathing. And exhale and relax. All right, so now we're going to curl the toes under and try to get the big toes stretched out all the way to the little toes. And back again to the big toes. And all the way out to the little toes. Stretching every toe as you go back and forth. One more time, going out toward the little toes. And back in toward all toes. Pushing forward as far as you can. Still the toes are curled under and going back. And then forward as far as you can and going back. And then have the undersides of the toes on the floor and try to have the heels evenly aligned with the inner and outer toes. Now we're going to put the feet down, heels down. And bring the toes up, but keep the ball of the foot down, balls of the feet down, and the heels down. Take the toes up, spread the big toes away from the little toes, and the little toes away from the big toes. And as you're breathing, bring the big toes down, other toes up. Inhale, all toes up, little toes down, other toes up. Inhale, all 10 up. Exhale, big toes down, all the other toes up. Inhale up. Exhale, put the little toes down. Inhale up. Exhale, put the big toes down and the little toes down. Inhale up. Put the big toes down and the little toes down. You can help with your hands if you need to, like if your big toes will go down but your little toes won't, you can push your little toes down, or you can push them both down, or you can pull up on the other toes. Inhale, all 10 up, big toes stretch away from the little toes and little toes stretch away from the big toes. As you exhale, put the little toes down and then the big toes down. Inhale up, put the little toes down and the big toes down. Inhale up. As you exhale, breathe. Now we're going to put the big toes up and all the other toes down. So you might have to hold the big toes up while you put the other toes down. This is a hard one for me, but for most people that's easier than putting the big toes down and then having the other toes up. It's a hard one for me. Inhale, stretch all the toes up, stretch the big toes away from the little toes and the little toes away from the big toes. Now we're going to bring the little toes up and all the other toes down. Deep breath. As you exhale, all 10 up. As you exhale the next time, little toes up, all the rest down. Inhale up, little toes and big toes up, and all the rest down. Breathing, inhale up, little toes up, big toes up, all the rest down. I can tell I haven't been doing this. I don't have as good a control. Take a breath in as you exhale.